From Lagos, Nigeria, this is News Central. I'm Felicity Ezewike. The top stories tonight. Appeal Court upholds ruling barring INEC from recognizing Ibadan PDP National Convention. Ondo State Governor Lucky Aiyedatiwa loses appeal against suit challenging his eligibility for re-election in 2028. G7 holds emergency meeting poised to support global energy supply as oil prices surge amid a Middle East conflict.
Dangote Refinery increases ex-gantry petrol price for a third time in 1 week. Now sells at 1,175 naira per litre.
In Lyon ahead of the World Cup qualifier against Colombia.
Tonight begins in a moment. Thank you for joining us. The Court of Appeal in Abuja has upheld separate federal high court judgments restraining the Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) from recognizing the outcome of the 2025 People's Democratic Party National Convention that was held in Ibadan, Oyo State. The appellate court held that the PDP failed to comply with constitutional and electoral provisions, including proper notice to INEC. The court also faulted the party for proceeding with the convention despite a subsisting court order requiring the participation of former Jigawa State Governor Sule Lamido and describing the conduct of the convention as contempt against a valid court order. The court dismissed the party's appeals and awarded a 2 million naira cost against the PDP.
We have listened to the judgments of the Court of Appeal, and we still maintain our position that our courts have no business meddling into matters that are purely political. These are matters that should be left to the internal affairs and internal resolution of the political parties. The court had promised that the judgments should be ready by tomorrow. So as soon as the judgments are received by our lawyers, they will advise us on what further necessary steps to take, if any.
This is victory for PDP. Victory for every member of PDP in Nigeria and across Nigeria. It's a victory for everyone. Justice has been done. I want to appreciate the court for being very critical in this judgment. And it's a wake-up call for political parties to be able to ensure that their affairs of the party is being guided by the Constitution and other guidelines and instant laws. For us, we represent nobody because we are all PDP. And it's an opportunity to also call on every member of PDP to come back home.
Nigeria is stepping up preparations for the 2027 general elections following the release of the Act 2026 and a revised timetable by the Independent National Electoral Commission. The new law introduces major reforms, including mandatory digital membership registers linked to national identification numbers and candidate nomination through direct primaries or consensus. While the ruling All Progressive Congress APC says it has built a database of over 10 million members, the Labour Party admits funding challenges are slowing its preparations. The People's Democratic Party says it is ready for the polls, while the African Democratic Congress warns the new requirement may disadvantage smaller opposition parties ahead of the 2027 elections. Okay, for this conversation, we will be having legal practitioner Abdulkareem Musa Thank you very much, Abdulkarim, for joining us. I mean, the 2026 Act has compressed timelines. We know there is reduced notice of election from 360 to 300, candidate list submission from 180 to 120 days, and then we have INEC's publication of candidates list from 150 to 60 days. All these together, stricter deadlines. Is it likely to expose political parties to increased risk of pre-election litigation when you think about compliance with direct primaries or consensus selections?
Good evening. Thank you for having me. Please, I do not really get your question.
Okay, with all the rules that have been put out by INEC, what are the challenges you see for political parties with keeping to deadline? The PDP says it's ready, yet today we had a court judgment that seemed to say otherwise. And then we have all the complaints that are coming up from parties.
Yes, you know, the issues preceding the amendments of the Electoral Act of 2026 are enormous. And political parties were in a state of relaxation, I could say, as to their internal party affairs, preparation of candidates for the forthcoming elections, because the attention was all towards amendment of certain provisions of consent to them. So what you can see in political parties is a form of destabilization by the reduction in the number of days that they are required to comply with certain rules with the INEC. So the amendment by the National Assembly and the directive by INEC has the capacity to destabilize the internal party affairs of several political parties. But that notwithstanding, since if a person is, if a person ought to have 160 days and now he's got 100 days, there is still sufficient time for political parties to re-strategize. They must turn their attentions from complaining and wailing over the actions of INEC and the ruling political party, because at the end of the day, that would amount to a distraction and focus squarely on taking power for the benefit of the Nigerian people.
We have Tunji Abdulhamid as well. He's a legal practitioner. Join this conversation. Tunji, thank you for being here. I was wondering what your thoughts are about the readiness of political parties, seeing all the concerns that has been raised. Let's take your thought on that in 30 seconds, and then I'll ask you another.
Yeah, I think bearing in mind that everybody, they were all expecting that the election would take place in February next year, and the emergency change of a timetable, which has reduced the number of days, vis-a-vis the regulation by INEC, which has introduced new requirement of e-registration. I think the political parties have been placed in a position that is predicament. In other words, they are in a very tight situation as to meeting the need. Bearing in mind also that almost all the parties, apart from APC, are having one crisis or the other. So this new requirement of e-registration for parties, members, or whatever, may likely be an obstacle for most of the political parties, particularly the ADC and the PDP and the Labour Party and some other parties who are not that strong enough to do the needful. For me, like I said earlier on, it will create more difficulty for them to be able to achieve that objective, bearing in mind the need to have a registration across the entire 36 states within a short period of time. I think it's too early and too sudden for them to meet. It will be difficult for some of the parties to meet it.
Okay, let me ask Abdulkarim this. Yeah. Yes, you're talking about the digitization and the challenges that come. The African Democratic Party has warned that the timeline set by INEC could make compliance difficult for opposition party. They've highlighted particularly the digital membership registration within a very short period of time. They say it is unrealistic. When you look at the fact that the ADC is a party that seems to be garnering some mileage, what are your fears when their spokesperson say things like this when it is a direct legal requirement for their participation in the polls? Abdul Karim.
Yes, you see, while we acknowledge the fact that direct primaries e-registration of party members would deepen democracy, the fear of the ADC is quite legitimate, and their fear is that for a party that is just newly constituted, they have not been institutionally ingrained in Nigeria. The membership is still growing, and the structures are still being built across several states. It's going to be difficult to comply with the provisions that INEC has set forth. However, my advice to the party and my position on this matter is that the party must distract itself from wailing and complaining and strategize speedily to conform with the provisions of the Electoral Act. While we are pushing for amendments that will be favorable to all political parties, the political parties must also, on the other hand, be fighting with what we have, be running with what we have on ground, because if they take any action that is contrary to the provisions that we have, the directive, the guidelines of INEC as it's presently constituted, is going to constitute a later problem post-election, during election petition litigations. So my advice to the ADC is to own up and put their house in order to comply with the provisions already set forth.
Some would argue that they're setting the stage for further litigation post-election. But in addition to that, political parties are now required to maintain a comprehensive digital register of members. That's what we've been talking about so far. Tunji, what are the chances that come January of 2027, we'll be talking about conclusion of campaigns, parties ready, or do you see the possibility of the major parties taking the day and the smaller parties just fading off this process and disenfranchising people who would want to be part of the election?
I think you don't have to wait till January. Have you forgotten that the primaries of the party must be done between April and May this year? So that is the starting point. By the time they start their primaries, you will see the game will change. But what this e-registration will do is that it may not allow new members to be part of the party. It may not even allow new people who have not been able to get tickets in a party move to another party the way they normally do when they fail in a primary in a particular party or a particular place. They move to another party. That will reduce that tension, that probability for them. But you see, the possibility of any party winning election for now is still not clear. Even though the APC seem to look like they are ahead of every other party, probably because they are in charge and they are the ruling party and they've been in power for almost 12 years now. So if they are not ready, I will be surprised that, look, that will show that on seriousness if they are not ready. So I'm not surprised that APC is saying that they are ready to meet all those requirements that have been brought upon by the INEC regulation. Or ADC, I'll not be surprised as well if they are not able to meet up, because they are just gathering their momentum. You know, people expect so much from this ADC of a party. They are just about forgetting that they are just 1 year as a party. PDP has been facing a lot of crises. Today, we are not even aware. We are not even sure of who is actually in charge, because I know I will not be surprised that this judgment that we'll have today will be a subject of appeal at the Supreme Court. So with all these issues on ground.
Yes. So much to look at, but we're time constrained, Tunji. I mean, I would have loved to hear your thoughts on Sirake Dixon's new party, the NDC, and its chances with this digitization and 2027. But we're out of time. We'll leave that for another day. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
And Abdul Karim, thank you as well for being with us. Coming up, Rivers Assembly declines confirmation of 4 out of 9 commissioner nominees put forward by Governor Fubara. We have details of this story and much more when we come back. Thank you for staying with us. You're watching Tonight on News Central. A reminder of our top stories. Appeal Court upholds ruling barring INEC from recognizing Ibadan PDP National Convention. Ondo State Governor Lucky Aiyedatiwa loses appeal against suit challenging his eligibility for re-election in 2028. And G7 holds emergency meeting poised to support global energy supply as oil prices surge amid Middle East conflict. Let's tell you now that the Court of Appeal in Abuja has dismissed an appeal filed by Ondo State Governor Lucky Aiyedatiwa challenging a ruling on his eligibility to contest the next governorship election. In a unanimous judgment, a 3-member panel held that the Federal High Court in Akure acted within its powers when it allowed the plaintiff, Akindele Ebuwalo, to amend his originating summons. Delivering the lead judgment, Justice Uchechukwu Onyemenam ruled that Aiyedatiwa failed to prove that lower court's decision caused him injustice or denied him fair hearing. The appellate court dismissed the appeal for lacking merit and awarded 2 million naira in costs against the governor. It also rejected Aiyedatiwa's request to set aside its earlier order staying proceedings, advising him to seek further redress at the Supreme Court of Nigeria. At Rivers State now, the State House of Assembly has screened and confirmed 5 of 9 commissioner nominees forwarded by Governor Siminalayi Fubara. The nominees confirmed during Monday's plenary after a screening exercise include Tonye Belgam, Tempo Nwofo, Peters Nwago, Amairiga Hart, and Lekwe Kenneth. The Assembly upheld the confirmation of 4 nominees: Charity Dimwa, Tamuno Williams, Otonye Amakre, and Datonye Alasia. Amakre's confirmation was set aside after petitions against him. Lawmakers stepped down the confirmation of Alasia after expressing dissatisfaction with his response during the screening. Dimwa was not cleared after she allegedly failed to present valid tax clearance certificates, while Williams could not secure the Assembly's approval over his previous remarks on Rivers' political crisis. The Labour Party says that it has commenced electronic registration for its members. This was made known in Abuja by the national chairperson of the party, and Nadine Usman, who unveiled the party's membership registration portal to the press at its national headquarters. Usman urged all citizens in support of the party to register online as part of the party's current membership registration exercise.
To build and develop it so that we make a robust opposition party for the betterment of Nigeria. So I want to call on Nigerians, I want to call on all supporters of the Labour Party to please go online. The link, we are going to share the link. Go online, wherever it is that you are, you register.
Governor Dauda Lawal has defected from the People's Democratic Party to the ruling All Progressives Congress. In a statement by his media aide, Nuhu Anka, the governor said the decision followed consultations with political stakeholders across Zamfara State. Lawal cited prolonged internal crisis and leadership disputes within the PDP as reasons for the move, saying the development was creating uncertainty and distracting from governance. Atlantis Pediatric Hospital says its doctors exercised reasonable duty of care following the interim suspension of its chief medical director by the Medical and Dental Practitioners Investigation Panel. The panel is investigating circumstances surrounding the death of 21-month-old Nkanu Esege, the son of Nigerian author Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, who died after receiving medical attention at Eurocare Multi-Specialist Hospital. In a statement, Atlantis Pediatric Hospital confirmed receiving formal notification of the suspension and said it would seek appropriate professional and regulatory guidance. The hospital also noted the matter is already before the Lagos State Coroner's Court, which is conducting an inquiry into the child's death. Management expressed condolences to the family and pledged full cooperation with ongoing investigations while maintaining the highest standards of pediatric care. Residents and motorists on Lagos Island are reacting to a fresh hike in the pump price of petrol, raising fresh concerns about transportation costs and the rising cost of living. At several filling stations visited across the area, fuel was available, but selling at the new higher price. News Central's correspondent Lekon Onobanjo visited some of the stations in our reports.
Station opposite, actually, because we were told not to record any footage because it is not permitted. There is a long queue at the filling station. This is Mobile, close to Bonny Camp anyway. Currently, we understand that the fuel, if my cameraman would just zoom behind me a bit and see that it is about 1,064 naira at Mobile, right here along Ozumbambadi. We're very close to Bonny Camp. And when we visited Falomo, that is our AP along Falomo Road. It was around 1,095 naira. We also checked on NNPC at Awolowo Way. It was around 1,050 naira. We also went to Mobile at Morocco. Petrol was sold about 1,006 naira thereabouts. And we spoke to a couple of Nigerians, and they shared their reservations as regards their hiking price and how it is affecting their pockets.
They told us about the subsidy issue in this country, that they are removing the subsidy. And I believe that since then till now, things are supposed to get better a little bit, at least, without even hearing about putting prices of fuel again. My brother, it's not good.
It's affecting me very badly, based from where I'm coming from, judging from where I'm coming from. It was not like this last week that I came here, but coming this morning, the price just increased. Last week, going and coming, I spent about 3,000. But today now, going and coming, I'm spending about 6,000.
News Central gathered that pump price might soon be as high as 1,250 naira in the coming days, as reports say Dangote Refinery has increased gantry price to 1,175 naira from 800 naira. As fuel managers become hostile and commuters are frustrated, the question is there any reprieve in sight?
I think they should just connect to like European countries, continent and management. They should let the Europeans handle the fuel community and everything.
There's no how. Some people want the fuel to reduce, due to the subsidy and all of that. While some people, they may not even want it at all. So it depends on whatever the government chooses.
Blaming the government, who told us that they are removing the subsidy, and up to now, nothing is done. It's very bad. So they need to work on this. In fact, let them restructure this country.
Before the recent fuel price increase, price at the pump was sold between 813 naira and 933 naira per litre. But tensions in the Middle East with fuel cargo disruptions along trade routes, including the Strait of Hormuz, have spiked global oil price from about $70 to over $100 per barrel. In Lagos for News Central, Lekon Onobanjo.
Many thanks, Lekon. Nigeria today signed the host agreement for the 5th Intra-African Trade Fair 2027, taking over the baton from Algeria. The agreement signing ceremony was held in Lagos, the designated host city, in partnership with Afri-Exim Bank, the African Union Commission, and the AFCFTA Secretariat, reinforcing Nigeria's central role in advancing intra-African trade and economic integration across the continent. The event is scheduled to take place from November 5 to 11, 2027. Joanna Mustafa reports.
Trade Fair will be situated in sub-Saharan Africa for the first time since its inception, with Lagos winning the bid at IATF 2025.
The big one, IATF 2027, will ensure that not only do we put our best foot forward, we will not disappoint all of you.
The 5th edition is set to host 100,000 participants, both physically and virtually, and reflects Nigeria's position as Africa's largest and most dynamic continental trade partner. But questions have been raised about Lagos's readiness, especially in terms of capacity.
That I pursued the chair, President Olusegun Obasanjo, who had his doubts. Nigeria, you guys feel kind of big for this kind of thing. Are you serious? I was chasing him all around.
We've had a little doubt here and there, some of which was expressed this morning by none other than Baba himself. But we trust and we have faith in your convictions, for convictions alone have brought Afrexim Bank to where it is.
Analysts also struggle to measure the real impact of the biennial fair on regional trade and integration.
Inter-African trade share, a total African trade, has in state decline from 16.3% to 14.5% in 2024. This underperformance is a great concern for us.
Its success will depend not only on the adoption of rules and agreements, but also on our ability to create practical platforms that enable African businesses to trade with one another.
In collaboration with our partners and the House and the host country, Nigeria, to orchestrate an exceptionally successful 5th edition of the Intra-African Trade Fair here in Lagos, Nigeria.
Over the years, IATF has established itself as Africa's premier platform for trade and investment, helping to translate the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement from a legal framework into real commercial activity.
A historic commitment has been sealed here.
In Lagos, for News Central, Joanna Mustafa.
It's hard for 2020.
Emergency response services earlier today contained a fire outbreak at the head of service complex in Abuja. The fire, believed to have been triggered by a faulty air conditioning unit, broke out on the 4th floor of the building, prompting emergency response from firefighters and rescue officials. Our correspondent Charles Pius reports.
Panic briefly gripped workers and visitors at the office of the head of service complex in the central area of Abuja when smoke was noticed coming from the 4th floor of the building. Emergency responders, including firefighters and rescue officials, swiftly moved to the scene to contain the situation and prevent the flames from spreading to other parts of the building.
Temporarily, we learned that it is from air conditioner that sought out the fire. But immediately we heard about the fire, we turned out our firemen. So if you see, 5 appliances are from Federal Fire Service, while 2 from FCT joined them. On getting here, our firemen controlled the fire. People should not be panicked. No more fire. Everything is no casualty at all. We need to question the casualty.
Speaking at the scene of the incident, the head of operations of the National Emergency Management Agency says the fire has been successfully brought under control.
As soon as information goes to my office, my responsibility is to quickly, as much as possible, activate all our base stations. We have what is called emergency response ambulance bay across Abuja. So the closest to this location is one in EYE. So we quickly activated, and that's why my ambulance is there, so that in case we have casualty, they can quickly be evacuated to the hospital. And we didn't just stop at that. Other relevant critical stakeholders that have a role to play in fire disaster management were quickly activated. And that's why you have civil defense here, we have federal fire, we have FCT fire, we have Red Cross, and every other stakeholder that have very critical role to play in fire disasters.
The official, however, stressed the need for greater safety consciousness in offices, urging workers to ensure electrical appliances are properly switched off before leaving their workspaces. Initial assessments indicates that the fire did not cause extensive structural damage to the building, largely due to the rapid intervention of firefighters. Officials of the Federal Fire Service say the quick response helped prevent what could have escalated into a major disaster.
The message you have for them is that please, as you are closing from your office for the day, ensure that every electrical appliance is switched off.
While no injuries or casualties have been reported, officials say further safety inspections will be carried out to determine the full extent of damage. For now, it remains unclear when staff will be allowed to fully return to the building as authorities continue to post incident assessments to ensure the structure remains safe for use. In Abuja for News Central, I'm Charles Pius.
Glad you're still with us. Leaders of the G7 say they are ready to take necessary measures to stabilize global energy markets as the war involving Iran, Israel and the United States drives oil prices higher. Finance ministers from the G7 and the International Energy Agency, IEA, held an emergency virtual meeting after crude prices surged close to $120 a barrel, triggering declines in global stock markets, while the option of releasing strategic petroleum reserves as discussed, no agreement was reached. IEA chief Fatih Birol warned oil markets have deteriorated in recent days. Professor Ezealem Agbon is an energy expert and global policy analyst. He joins me for this conversation. Thank you, as always, for being here. The meeting ended without any significant agreement being put out, and then the talk about a strategic reserve. There was no consensus. Even France is saying it's a bit too early. What are your thoughts about this meeting and what it can do to help stabilize oil prices in the interim pending what develops with the Middle East crisis?
Thank you for having me. I think that the decision was for them, the decision that the G7 made was that they should wait because they don't want an immediate impact on their economy. They have about 1.24 billion barrels of petroleum products and crude oil in reserve. And they don't want to open their strategic reserve and deplete their inventory because they think that they should wait a little for the U.S.-Israel-Iran conflict to either come to a quick end or until the impact is felt with respect to their inventory. So they've decided to wait because they don't want an immediate impact on their economy.
Would you now say the G7 seemed to be agreeing with Trump, who posted on Sunday that short-term oil prices, which will drop rapidly when the destruction of the Iran nuclear threat is over, is a very small price to pay for the U.S. and the world for safety and peace. I want you to react to that, really. Would you say that the G7 is concurring with Trump, that this is a temporary setback, or they're just two disconnected issues?
No, I don't think they are agreeing with Trump. The war is not going to be a short war, and the disruption is not going to be a spike. This war is not going to be over quickly. What the G7 are doing is they are separating their linkages from the United States by setting up an economic parameter that affects their economy in Europe. Usually, when the oil price go up $1, you see about a 2 cents increase almost immediately. They call it a rocket effect in the pump price. At the gasoline pump, the petrol prices go up by about 2 cents. And therefore, there is, on the other hand, if oil price drop, the price at the pump don't drop immediately. Because they don't want this immediate impact on their pump, like you are seeing in Nigeria, they are saying, let's wait a little before we start to give and use up our reserve. So what they are going to do.
Yeah, sorry, talking about Nigeria.
What they are going to do.
Okay. Just round
what
up
they are
quickly.
going to do, they are going to release their reserve little by little in order to mitigate the impact of the oil price increase on gasoline prices so that it does not affect their economy, their food price, and transportation price.
Okay, apologies for interjecting so quickly, but I was in a rush to ask you about Nigeria because I've spoken to some experts on this subject, some analysts on this subject, who say that for Nigeria, oil prices usually mean more revenue for the government. But in retrospect, Nigerians, like you rightly pointed out, are facing higher petrol prices now, and the chances of that increasing in the coming days is there. Could you explain this as quickly and as briefly as you can, so perhaps anyone watching will understand how revenue for Nigeria does not translate to easier prices for citizens?
Well, there is a revenue increase for Nigeria. But a revenue increase for Dangote means that the price of petrol should go up. Because revenue for Dangote means that price of petrol go up and the volume go up. But for Nigeria, the interest of Nigeria of increased revenue is not the same thing as the interest of Dangote for increased revenue. So what you are seeing is a situation where Dangote is taking an immediate advantage of an increase in oil price to enforce an increase in the pump in order to maximize his profit on the short term. It's an oligopolistic profit with immediate. It does not, Dangote does not concern itself about what is the interest of the ordinary man or what is the interest of the government. It's the interest of the shareholder that concerns Dangote. So for a $1 rise in the price of petrol, Dangote increased the pump by about 10 cents or 200 naira. But when you see worldwide, a dollar increase in the price of crude oil lead to, let's say, a 2 cents increase in gas price, not 10 cents. So Dangote is making a lot of profit. For instance, Dangote have got 33 million barrels of crude oil sitting in tanks. So it has oil that it can refine, but it imposes an immediate replacement profit by increasing the price immediately in the pump instead of using its reserve, because he claims that, we have to do replacement costs. But if the price of petrol goes down, Dangote does not reduce the price of if the price of crude oil goes down, Dangote will not reduce the pump price immediately. No, it will take a time before it reduces slowly. That way, it makes a lot of profit. On the other hand, for the ordinary working Nigeria at 770,000 a month, the cost of transportation have gone up, the cost of food have gone up, the cost of fuel have gone up, but the minimum wage is constant. So what is actually happening is that the wealth of ordinary working Nigeria in the short term is being transferred from the pocket of ordinary working Nigeria to the pocket of shareholders of Dangote.
Quite unfortunate reality, really. Let's see what happens in the coming days. Thank you, Prof, for obliging us again.
Thank you very much for having me.
Tonight returns with business, sports, and entertainment news. Do stay with us.
In business, Nigeria's fuel market is facing fresh pressure after Dangote Petroleum Refinery has raised its ex-depot price of petrol to 1,170 naira per litre and diesel to 1,620 naira per litre, marking the fourth adjustment in less than 2 weeks. The new rates represent a sharp jump from the previous 995 naira per litre for petrol and 1,430 naira for diesel. Industry players say pricing moves by the refinery often influence depot prices nationwide, meaning marketers may soon adjust pump prices. And about the equities market, it managed a modest uptick as the all-share index added 0.12% to close at 197,194.87, nudging market capitalization up to 126.58 trillion naira. We look at sectoral performance and tell you that the banking sector declined 0.99%, with profit-taking resurfacing in major lenders weighing on the financial space. Right here, insurance also fell sharply 3.05%, the weakest sector of the day as sellers dominated noted across several media counters. Oil and gas edged up 2.07%, I beg your pardon, with strong buying interest in Seplat, helping to offset a weakness elsewhere. We see that consumer goods also increased 0.58%, reflecting steady defensive accumulation in names like Nestle Nigeria Industrial Goods. However, closed flat. That's it on business. I am Blake Onabanjo.
Nigeria's women's national basketball team, the Tigers, held their first training session today in Lyon, France, ahead of the first game against Colombia on Wednesday, the 11th of March, in the 2026 FIBA Women's World Cup qualifying tournament, scheduled to take place from March 11th to the 17th. The training session featured several experienced stars, including guards Promise Amukamara and Izini Kalu, as well as captain Emi Okonkwo, who are expected to play key roles throughout the tournament. Although the Tigers have already secured qualification for the 2026 FIBA Women's World Cup in Berlin, the team will use the qualifying tournament as valuable preparation for the global showpiece scheduled to hold from September 4th to September 13th. The Director General of the National Sports Commission, Bukola Olopade, says he believes Nigerian athletes can win medals at the 2026 Commonwealth Games. Olopade made the statement during the finals of the National Boxing Trials organized by the Nigeria Boxing Federation at the Brai Ayonote Boxing Gym National Stadium, Surulere, Lagos. Following the competition, 20 boxers, 10 men and 10 women were selected for the final training camp ahead of the Games in Glasgow. However, 7 athletes will be dropped after the final campaign scheduled for April. Finally, on Sports News Tonight, winners of the Confederation of African Football club competitions will receive significantly increased prize money starting this season. CAF announced on Monday that the 2025-26 CAF Champions League winners will earn $6 million, up from $4 million last season. The winners of the CAF Confederation Cup will receive $4 million, a 50% increase. Prize money for runners-up remains unchanged, with Champions League finalists earning $2 million and Confederations Cup runners-up receiving $1 million. The increase is expected to ease financial pressure on clubs, many of whom have complained that the participation in continental competitions often leads to losses due to costly and complicated travel across Africa. That's all on Sports News Tonight. I am Okweoluwa Adebari. Entertainment is next with Sam Dandy.
In entertainment, Nollywood actress Sarah Martins has apologized after the Lagos state government cautioned her over cooking and sharing food on public roads. The warning followed viral videos showing the actress preparing meals outdoors for street children during a charity outreach. Lagos authorities said the cooking on roads or walkways violates environmental and public safety laws. The State Commissioner for Environment and Water Resources, Tokumbo Wahab, says while charitable initiatives were commendable, they must comply with the state's environmental and sanitation laws.